Right. Yeah, my name is Chris, and I'm a software developer who's been interested in package management stuff for a while now. This conference has been really interesting. It's reminded me how big the package management space is. I think I've been sort of sitting in a corner, interested in the stuff I'm interested in, but not paying perhaps enough attention to what's going on around me. So yeah, I want to talk a bit about what is Guix. That was mentioned, I think, just once in the really interesting talk we had before. I'm also going to try and talk about how Guix compares to some of the other kind of tools in the space, and finally talk a bit about some of the work I've been doing recently on quality assurance in Guix. This isn't a demo talk, really. I'm not planning to really demonstrate anything, but do talk to me afterwards if you want to see more. So yeah. So what is GNU Guix? It's a package manager. You can use it to install things. It's also a large curated distribution of packages, package collection. I said 20,000 plus in the abstract for the talk. I think it's actually close to 26,000 now. It's also a full distribution, so I've got Guix installed on my laptop. You can use it on servers and container images, virtual machines, all that stuff. But if you describe Guix in this way, where you kind of enumerate all the features, it kind of sounds like it's doing too much, doing quite a lot. I kind of prefer describing it as a software deployment tool. So whether you're deploying software to your own machine, deploying your whole machine, deploying some container image server, deploying to some embedded board that runs a different architecture to your the system you're building on, Guix can help you with that. It can also help you release software. So say if you have a software project and you're wanting to build artifacts that other people use, Guix can help you do that. So as a project, Guix has a few priorities. The first one is kind of free software. So Guix itself is free software. The main package collection contains free software. There are third-party channels, of course, which contain a mixture of free software and non-free software. But yeah, as a reminder, the software doesn't want to be free. It's the people that want to be free, or maybe some people. So not only does Guix try and distribute free software, it's designed in a way to try and put the user in control. The next priority for Guix is it's trying to be a universal package manager. So because Guix can be used to deploy software to so many different types of system, I mean, to do a good job of that, it has to try and shape the software to those particular systems. Now, I think it has quite a long way to go to do this well, but that's the aim at least, be a universal package manager. It also tries to be transparent. So you as a user of Guix should be able to tell what's going on, what's going on with the software you're managing. Right, so a bit about where Guix came from. So Guix is, I guess, a not young, not old project. I'm not quite sure how it fits in with some of the stuff that's been discussed. It's, I think, 11 years old now, and I've been kind of doing stuff for the last few years. So Guix comes from a combination of GNU Guix, which is a scheme implementation, and Nix, which has been mentioned a few times so far. So this is also where the name comes from. So Guix plus Nix equals Guix. And I mean, something that I wanted to mention specifically, because I didn't think it had been mentioned enough, is so Guix is an implementation of the purely functional software deployment model that was pioneered in Nix. I won't say too much about this. Elko, who actually authored this paper, is here. So maybe you can go and talk to him about it. But I wanted to emphasize the kind of functional aspect. So, I mean, you can think of functions in software or functions in mathematics, but the thing is, you're getting some software, say Python, by performing some function over Python source plus the inputs you need to build Python. And the purely functional aspect of it is that you're not doing anything else. There's nothing sneaking into the environment. You're not doing any arbitrary network activity. And doing it this way has some advantages. Like maybe it's a bit harder up front. You need to kind of deal with maybe not doing anything with network. But yeah, if you do it this way, you get some of the advantages that you can, yeah, well, I'll talk about a bit more later. One of the other really kind of important sort of building blocks behind Guix is this concept of reproducible builds. So Guix, as a package manager, distributes packages. They're kind of source packages, but it also distributes binaries. And we're kind of moving in a direction where we want those binaries to, like, people to have trust in them, but have trust in them not through trusting like Guix as an organization. Have trust in them through some kind of more distributed mechanism. We think the kind of reproducible builds model for this is the way to go. So with that, you get multiple entities perhaps building the same packages, reproducing the same binaries, hopefully, bit for bit identical. And then that allows you to kind of get some reassurance through hopefully trusting several of those entities that you're getting something that corresponds to the source code. All right. So I wanted to go on and talk a bit more, try and break Guix down a bit more. So the first thing is, like, yeah, in the space of package managers, some package managers deal more with like binary packages, some deal more with source code. So Guix sort of sits somewhere in between. Fundamentally, it's the source-based package manager. So the packages are source packages. If you didn't enable any binary substitutes, then you would build everything from source. But you can enable that to yeah, skip the kind of compilation step and go straight to a binary. For comparison, say something like Debian, like the apps package manager primarily deals with binary packages. When you ask it to install something, that's a binary package that's downloading. Another kind of, like something that's this conference has got me thinking about more is kind of when does dependency resolution happen in package managers? So in Guix, I think we do very early dependency resolution. That is, the package definitions themselves fully encapsulate all dependencies, including the exact versions, everything is encapsulated. This is in contrast to, I think, systems which have like dependency resolution, where like you don't know until you press that enter key when you've asked it to install something, what it's actually going to install on the system. Like Guix doesn't have any dependency resolution at runtime or dependency resolvers that are used in general. And I think this is, yeah, a key difference between some of it and some of the other package managers. There's also, I guess, this concept of like a package manager works globally on a system, and a package manager that's built around having compartmentalized views of what packages are used and installed. So like Guix is usable on a whole system as a package manager. It'll give you like a kind of system profile and per user profiles, but it's yeah, you can have individual, like many profiles, as many as you want, different views on what packages are installed. Yeah, right. I think there's also a difference between package managers in what they require of a user that's using them. Some package managers maybe only deal with something in their domain, say like Ruby software or Python software, and require the user to take some manual steps when like the software they're using goes outside of that domain. Guix, it tries to, yeah, it works without any manual intervention, so you shouldn't need to like help it along or yeah, help it along by installing stuff. It's managing everything for you. I think there's also, I mean, there's kind of lots of these things overlap, but there's different opinions between package managers on like how you build software. So Guix sits very much on the isolated build side, as I described with the functional deployment model. You don't have any other bits leaking into your builds. Whereas some package managers use open builds, and that's a feature. You want the software to detect things about the system, what other software is available, what hardware is available maybe, and use that. I think there's also, I mean, this is maybe something where, like, maybe we all want customizable package definitions, but I think in the past, lots of package managers have had quite rigid package definitions. I think I definitely found that when I was using Debian packages. I think, yeah, Guix provides very customizable packages, which help improve user control. There's also, I mean, we've discussed kind of provenance, supply chains, SBOMs quite a lot. And yeah, so provenance, I mean, I'd use it as a term to describe kind of the entire history of what's going on with the software. So if you've got some binary on your system, the provenance of that is the entire process that's went into producing that. So I guess Guix tries to provide very clear provenance, not by necessarily recording information as like the build goes along, but more by setting out exactly what that process is up front. Yeah, right. And the final kind of point I want to make about kind of where Guix sits in the space is about bootstrapping. So again, this tightly relates to provenance. So if you think about like how you produce software, often you need to compile your compiler. What compiler do you use to compile your compiler? It gets complicated. So yeah, Guix as a project has tried to take quite a serious approach to bootstrapping, trying to really reduce the data and software required to bootstrap down to a very minimal level, which is better as you're trusting less data, which you can't like build from source. So, I mean, I think overall, I think I was lucky when I started off in the kind of package management stuff. I know I've mentioned Debian a few times. That's what I started off using quite a few years ago. Then I moved to Guix. But yeah, like I think some people I find have problems with using like multiple package managers. Some of that, I mean, I'm not sure having unisolated code execution at build and runtime is a good thing in package managers. Yeah, there's some tools also you've got no control over the supply chain. You might have no provenance, or you're told how it's done, but you don't have. That's not an actionable thing you can reproduce. And yeah, the bootstrap story I think is not as good as it could be. Now, I'm not saying that Guix is a perfect solution yet, but personally, I'm kind of hopeful in it, and I think it's moving in the right direction. So I think by having a very unified approach to package management, not kind of siloing it by language, trying to specify the full process up front rather than trying to record information as you go along, trying to have distributed and verifiable trust in binaries through reproducible builds, I think is really important. And yeah, working on the bootstrap to try and minimize that, I think is very well worth it as well. Okay, I've run through that, and I don't think I'm making good time, which is good. So I now talk a bit about quality assurance, which is something I've been working on recently. So, I mean, quality assurance, I think, has quite a standardized term when it comes to software. It's about like how that software relates to its requirements, and how the processes you use to make that so. So Guix exists as a manually created software like collection. And that's something I think is valuable. I think it adds value, that work that goes into it. But that's not to say we don't use tooling, and there isn't a place for tooling to help with that process. So, one of the things we care about in terms of like quality assurance for Guix is it doesn't have strict requirements, but there are things we care about. Like we like packages that build. And this isn't a simple thing, unfortunately. Yeah, a package can build on your system but it might not build reliably on another system. Maybe it builds on your system reliably, but not on a different architecture that it should support. Maybe it doesn't cross-build, like Guix supports cross-building, which can be quite useful. And yeah, maybe it doesn't build reproducibly, which can have problems when trying to verify, yeah, you've got a corresponding binary. There's also, like, even if it builds, and it builds reliably on very many platforms, you can have problems where the software, even though it builds, doesn't work at install time. I mean, obviously, Guix isn't trying to solve problems in upstream code. Like, we try and help do that in the upstream code. But we do want to make sure that we're not causing extra problems by installing packages incorrectly. So, as I mentioned, the kind of approach to QA involves human review. I think that's very important. But there's also like tooling. So GeeksLint is a tool that helps check a variety of simple things, up to and including like security vulnerabilities that have been reported, and like formatting issues. There's also Guix Challenge, and this is the tool specifically for checking like build reproducibility. So it allows you to build it yourself and check the results against various like substitute servers and see if you're getting the same bits. Then there's the stuff I've been working on. So I've been trying to pull together some of this stuff into a kind of a web front end, and also use that to manage some of the automated testing that I've been trying to put together. So one of the things I've been looking at is how to test kind of changes. So people send patches for Guix, maybe new packages, maybe updates. And yeah, I've been trying to test them. But that's easier said than done. So the process I've been taking for this is first trying to determine what has changed. So a patch might add a new package. That's quite a simple change, but it might update a package. Maybe that package has dependencies. Maybe like how are they affected? So yeah, determining what changed is part of the problem. Then once I know what's changed, I can build those affected packages on various systems, and then try and report those results to the person who submitted the patch, as well as anyone who's reviewing it, hopefully inform what they do. So, talking a bit more about kind of determining what's changed and how to know what to build. The process I take is to actually compute derivations for everything. So I wanted an approach that would be very rigorous. So it wouldn't, you could use heuristics to try and guess at, like, looking at the text of the patch and trying to guess what's changed, but I wanted a rigorous approach, so just compute derivations for everything, where a derivation is a very low-level representation of the package. And then what you can do is store all those derivations in a Postgres database. And what that allows you to do is then query to see, you have some base revision of Guix, you have some revision you're testing, and then you can build all the derivations and compare to see what's changed. Now, I said I wasn't going to do a demo, but I will show, this is kind of a screenshot I took. You can see kind of at the bottom, you've got a table with kind of some rows for different systems, and then two sides, kind of the base, and then with some changes, and yeah. I mean, one of the big bits of work that I still need to do is try and, now I've got some data, is trying to better communicate it, because, yeah, changes can be quite complicated. I mean, this is a simple change, a single package is updated, but big branches can involve lots of changes. Right, I don't know quite how I'm doing for time, but I think I'm doing okay. But hopefully you found this useful. So hopefully I've given you a little outline of the QA stuff. But more importantly, hopefully I've talked a bit about the functional model that Guix uses and how that matters. And yeah, maybe I've convinced you to take a look at Guix. All right.
Thank you, Christopher. Are there any questions for Christopher? No questions? Yeah. One here.
Okay, hopefully this isn't too basic, but in your last slide, you have the chart of passing, failing. What's blocked mean in the semantics of geeks?
Blocked, that's just things that haven't been built because their dependencies haven't been successfully built yet. So you can't, one of the things with, if something builds, then you know it at least has been built. But if something fails to build, you can't necessarily say that it will always fail to build. Maybe it will work in the future. So I've been trying to deal with that. Obviously, with Guix packages, we want them to build reliably. But in this case, we can't assume that, yeah, that's true. We need to test it. So that's something that I want to look more in the future, to try and build packages in various ways to try and exhibit failures to hopefully reduce the chance of that creeping in.
Thank you. One more question.
You mentioned several things. One, that Guix doesn't use a resolver, which makes sense. You have the hashes. Instead, you also mentioned that there are tools to perform several operations. I was wondering whether one of those tools is I'm assuming if there's no resolution, I'm assuming a human, which is not a bad thing. A human is checking every dependency kind of change and making it by hand. But I'm assuming there are probably also tools for that. And I just look up derivations, and it seems like that might be one way to. And I guess I'm wondering, is there also a Guix update kind of command, or is there some incompatibility with updating to the most recent version of something with, I don't know, the Guix either security model or something else? So this is a basic question. I'm sorry if I'm not saying it well. Thank you.
No, I think I've got some of that. So there's a Guix refresh command, which can help you when updating packages. You can tell it, go update a package, and it'll actually, if you're in a Guix source tree, it will go and change the version and the hash. It doesn't look at any dependencies, though, so it's kind of on you to look at, OK, I've updated this. What does that impact? Are there any dependencies which are incompatible with that new version? This is one of the things that I'm hoping the kind of QA tooling that I've been working on will help find, and then you can fix.
Thank you.